Okay, so here we are going to go over Joe's pigeon, but the first thing I want to show you are the challenges to the conventional terminal hip extension runner exercises. So again, the challenge is, can we work through full hip extension without lumbar extension? And so I love bridges, but they can be really challenging and they can be sensitizing for people with back pain. And so the challenge is, can we go into hip extension without lumbar extending? And so what a lot of people wind up doing is this. So you can see that I've got this big old arch through my spine. Yes, I'm extending through my hips, but I'm doing that using my lumbar. And so again, it becomes this thing where we not only create lumbar stress and stiffness in our back, we're also kind of training the brain to overuse that musculature. And so we can work really hard to lock in the lumbar, keep the back flat, and that's great, and you can do that. So here's me doing a better job, but there's still a compressive component to that I don't like. So the same challenge then we see with this exercise, which I also like. This is the standard all fours extension. And so the same thing, I'm looking at this area, can I extend through my hip without lumbar extending? But again, it's a big challenge. And so I can put a hand here, I can really lock this in and make sure that I'm not moving, and that's pretty good. But I thought, why don't we go with our exercise from last month, that couch stretch, where it locks the lumbar spine by going into full hip flexion. So what that looks like, as you may recall, is putting a leg into relative, here's our stretch leg into extension, while the bottom leg is in full flexion. And so that's what we're going to do, but into a strength exercise. So what we're going to do, I'll show you what I'm going to do with my locked out leg first, and then we'll switch and show you the movement leg. And so rather than be here, I'm going to go into full, as full as I can, hip extension. So it looks like a pigeon. It kind of looks like pigeon pose with the leg into flexion, except for I'm not going to go across like this. I'm just going to go into regular hip flexion, and I'm going to go as low as I can. So now I'm really into as full of hip flexion as I can. And what that does is through the fascial connections in the pelvis, it's going to lock my lumbar into neutral. I can't extend through here at all. And so that's then when I can work on that hip extension. So now to show you near side, so I'm going to lock out my right leg, bring my left behind, and now it becomes a little bit of a balance challenge. So it kind of almost looks like a crow pose in yoga. So I need to put my hands into a push-up position near my knee, and now I'm ready to go. That's my off position. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to orient my toe, because that goes with this pattern of pushing off. I'm going to point my toe, and here we go. I'm going to go as high as I can go. And you can see I'm a little bit stiff. I can't quite, I'm close, but I can't quite get the green seam of my pants equal with the blue of my trunk. But that's the goal. So right now I can really crank on this and go as high as I can go, and I feel nothing in my low back. I don't have to worry about my core, I don't have to worry about my abs, which is, again, do those exercises, but if we want to really focus on hip, this takes all of that away and allows us to focus completely on what the hip is doing. So I have great activation, I can really feel my glute working, and I try to go as far as I can and come back down to the ground, pointing my toe. The other challenge then has to do with this plane. This is a little bit harder, and I struggle with this, so I'm going to show as best as I can. In this frame, what I want to try to do is extend without doing any rotation. And the most common rotation we're going to see, as measured by the lower leg, is external rotation. But the reality is there's a little bit of hip internal rotation that's efficient with push-off. And so what we want to do is actually be slightly leg out when we do that extension. Here, with a slight outward finish versus coming across like that. Try that one at home, see what kind of range that you got, and like I said, if you find yourself really limited, say like maybe you can't even get off the ground, some people, or you're stuck here, and go back to Joe's couch stretch. Stretch, spend some time in that same lumbar protective stretch position, then immediately follow up with Joe's pigeon hip extension.